Good evening, everybody. My name is James Wang, and I'm here with Tyler Hodge and Phillip Booker. This is the follow-up Q&A session for the SCC Children's Ministry Workshop. So whether you were there or you checked out the replay videos that Phillip so kindly put together along with all those that were there at the Redlands, we're looking forward to answering questions that you have. So the format tonight is we're going to go ahead and look through the chat area. So submit your questions into that chat area. Some of the responses of different topics that people are interested in, we have some of that information as well, so we'll look to that. So starting out, hello John, hello Susan, glad you guys are on with us. Let us know your questions. But the first question up, guys, is how do you get kids more engaged? And, you know, there's a couple different angles that we can take it from, so I'm going to make it kind of open-ended. Phillip, you want to go ahead and start fielding that one?
So I assume we're talking about getting like bus kids interacting with the class. Church kids are usually more comfortable in that environment, at least in ours. So I'm sorry, I have a visitor. I'm trying to go through. But as far as getting them, questions are a great way to get them involved in the class, and it's nothing that's going to put them on the spot. You're not trying to pull trivia out of them, but just to get them involved. Like, what do you think about a situation? Just to tie them in and pull it in, and it works. That works out really well. It's a good place to start.
Questions. Okay, I like it. Tyler, how would you respond to that one?
Questions are a great way to get the kids interacting with the class or even church or whatever. But another thing that I like to use is giving keywords or maybe even a certain sound effect or even different actions that the person administering the class or the power hour or whatever would give a certain action, like raise their right hand, right? And if you give an expectation to the class, for example, if you're talking about Jesus provides for his children, at the very beginning of class, if I raise my right hand, everybody in the classroom shouts to the top of your lungs, Jesus provides for his children. Or there's been other times when you could clap twice and tell them, every time I clap twice, no matter what part of the class we're in, when you hear me clap, you say whatever it is that you want them to say, or however you want them to participate. It could be repeating the subject matter as far as the theme, the title of your lesson. It's a great way to get the kids involved. And what I like about that method is you're getting the kids to pay attention to you throughout the class because they're expecting to be involved somewhere at some random moment, and they're going to miss out. They're going to miss out if they're not listening to the teacher say the key word or do that particular action. So I really like that as well.
You did a great one at the seminar, Brother Tyler, where it was you raise your right hand and they all say amen. You put your left hand out and they say preach it, brother, and then you just play it back and forth, and it was awesome. I'm still in that.
That's a blast, and what I like, especially with kids' church, because what I like to talk about in kids' church, we might get into this a little later, is I think one of the main points of kids' church is you're training, you're showing the kids how to have church, and so what we do in the adult setting, we're trying to teach them on their own level. We want to see kids get the whole book, but hey, that's something that should be happening every service in a regular church service. And same thing with getting involved in the service as far as backing up preaching. And a trick that I have for that is I tell the kids, hey, I found out that my right hand has a superpower. Every time I raise it in the air, straight up in the air, it's really crazy. Everybody in the congregation says, amen! And it's really neat. You establish that and you raise your hand, and I guarantee you all the kids are going to scream, amen! Do the same thing with your left hand. Every time you point it that way, It's so crazy. My
Yeah.
my hand has a superpower. It makes everybody in the congregation say, "Preach it, brother." And you do it, and they say, "Preach it, brother." And you could do that, utilize that throughout your entire lesson, your entire kids' church, and the kids are like watching you, and they're learning
Yeah.
how to pick up preaching or teaching or whatever. It's a really great opportunity to get the kids involved.
That
Yeah,
was
I like
awesome.
it.
I was sitting
I
in
like
your class and I was loving it. That was great. I was ready for you to raise your hand. I was behind you. That was great.
So recapping, the two things that you guys talked about was, Phillip, you were mentioning about the questions, using questions to kind of get kids more involved, get their minds into what's happening. Tyler, you mentioned about kind of the call and response type of stuff and the repeat. And I really like that idea of some type of physical motion tied to it, right? That's the cue. So that's neat. That's really neat. I'd throw in there, depending on your situation. Sometimes people are wondering how to get kids to interact more in their classes, and something that I thought, actually, speaking of a lot of those replays, like what Caleb did with the games, like you can do games in classes too. There's how can you structure your class so that they're not just sitting there, right? If you solve that problem, they will be able to pay attention. The other thing I'll throw out is, I've kind of found sometimes, especially when if you didn't have a bus ministry before and then suddenly you have one, there may be things that you're going to have to start to change. Like, it was never a problem doing puppets in kids' church for 6 through 9-year-olds, but once we started to have a higher blend of bus kids, they just weren't as into it as much as the church blend for some reason. And it was like, we realized, it's like, no, we don't have to totally throw away the puppets. We'd have to change certain things, but we definitely had to change certain things. So that's just something I'll throw out there for that. We got a question here on songs. So John is wondering, we were wondering if you guys could show us a link to some fun children's songs. Tyler, I'll let you start off. I've got some ideas, and then we'll go Tyler, Phillip, and then myself.
Cool.
Kids songs.
This is something that I love, finding new, fresh action songs to utilize in kids' church and Sunday school. I absolutely love it. I always think, Father Abraham, the kids, that's a good, that's your back is up against the wall, and the opposing army is progressing. You're slowly being crushed out by the enemy, and so your last ditch effort is Father Abraham, right? And Father Abraham, if I hear a teacher doing Father Abraham in their classroom, I know they waited till 30 minutes before class to get stuff together for Sunday school. And so I love fresh children's music. I utilize Spotify, and Apple Music is another one that I'm using right now. That's a paid for subscription, but Spotify is free. And what it is, you could type in some kids song artists, and I actually have some right here, and I might type them in. You could look them up on your own. No, I don't have them on any of my notes, but there's Hillsong Kids. There's
Yes.
There's
Go Fish.
Uncle
Go Fish.
There's a lot of really good ones out there, very quality, and it's not this kumbaya sounding kid choir, in the background. It's very high energy, and I utilize Spotify a lot and Apple Music, and the reason why I really like those two resources is because if you go to a particular artist, on that artist page online, or you could scroll down and it'll give you related artists, and so the search is endless. You'll look at Hillsong, and then you go down Hillsong Kids, and then you go down and it'll give you artists that are related to that particular artist. So it'll give you other kids artists that you wouldn't even know to look up otherwise, and just look. Search it out for yourself. And I'm such a kids men junkie that whenever I hear kids songs that are high energy, I automatically am thinking of actions and ways to sing the song, and that's one resource I would definitely use, is Spotify or Apple Music or iTunes.
Okay. Phillip?
This is actually a really hot topic, and I want to add it to Apostolic Sunday School. But I'm trying to figure out how not to get in trouble with copyright, because I want to put songs up there without getting me in trouble. So I'm trying to, maybe I can do the first 10 seconds and a link to where you can buy it. But I think an easier way would be for at least the ones that I'm comfortable with, maybe doing recordings of during class, of our classes singing them or something. I'm still trying to work on this where I can do it without getting in trouble. But there is, every church has their, how can I put this? They have their go-to kids songs that are awesome. I mean, they are just killer. Like ours are, If You Love Jesus, Moo Like a Cow, the Holy Pokey. It is awesome. It's not the Hokey Pokey. It's the Holy Pokey. It's amazing. You raise your hands together, turn your life around. It's amazing. It's awesome. Everybody has theirs. On a day like this, it's like these songs are amazing, but your church has your 10 songs that are just as amazing, and I don't know anything about them, and I want them. So I was thinking maybe we could do something at one of these conferences where every church brings their top 5 songs, and then we weed out the duplicates, and then you either play them or perform them. I don't know. I'm still trying to play with it, but there's tons. Like he was talking about, there's Pure Heart that we use. The guys, they're so good. Freedom Kids, even Brentwood Kids, Cedarmont Kids, Youth Chorus Book. These guys are so talented, and they're a blast. And you can make up your own actions. I'm sure every church has their own actions, but they're killer. They're just awesome. But I want yours, and I'm going to post them. I'm at least going to put a page with the titles and links where you can go buy them, if nothing else. And I'm just trying to figure out how not to get in trouble.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that too. Like with sharing that type of stuff, at least if we're sharing like the group and maybe some of our favorite songs for them, that's probably the easiest way to do it without getting ourselves in trouble, like you were saying there. But yeah, so Tyler, you mentioned Hillsong Kids. They have a lot of really fun stuff.
Especially even for puppets. I mean, they're out of the world. Yes,
they're the ones that are very famous for Jesus is my superhero, and they're also they do that Let Your Light Shine song. So I think it's getting really popular now. The whole like glow in the dark kids church and blacklight kids church and stuff like that. We did that one for our VBS, and everybody went nuts, and they really liked it. So that was Hillsong Kids. Another one is you mentioned Go Fish, and I'll say they're definitely very fun. They very a cappella sound and everything, but it's a lot of fun. Another one is there's Shout Praises Kids. Yeah, Shout Praises. So they do a lot of contemporary Christian songs, but it's all sung with kids. So that's kind of neat too. Another recommendation is, even if you don't use the group VBSs for your VBS experience, if you do it, if you don't do it, either way, their songs are fun. So you might want to still go onto their site and buy just the CD of the songs and collect some of those songs, or get them one way or another. But we like a lot of their stuff too. So I would say those are just some of my thoughts on different places to get songs. So the Shout Kids, Go Fish, Hillsong Kids, and group VBS music.
I have 2 more recommendations as far as artists are concerned. Would be Ronnie Caldwell, Caldwell, Ronnie Caldwell. He's really good. And Uncle Charlie. Now, there's 2 Uncle Charlies out there, so you want to make sure you get the right Uncle Charlie. It's it's obvious which one is for Sunday school, okay? So, but that's a really good one. Another one that it's really not that difficult is thinking of some of the older songs. Kids love some of the 90s praise and worship music, like Open the Eyes of My Heart, Lord. They don't have to be necessarily specific to children's ministry. You could do How Did You Feel When You Came Out of the Wilderness? I mean, there are so many actions attached to that song And it's just a normal praise and worship chorus. It's just the way you present it to the kids and give them the opportunity to participate.
This is what I'll do, guys. If nothing else, I'll at least get the artist and some of their songs that you guys like. If you don't mind, I've typed up the ones that you just mentioned, and I'm going to get those posted. So at least we have a list growing, and it'd be great if we can get some sort of clips eventually, but at least we'll have something for people to look at. And I love your idea because half of these I haven't even heard of. And youth chorus book. The one I mentioned briefly, their volume 1 is called Crowdbreaker. It is so good. I mean, they got songs from Stand Up and Shout If You Love My Jesus, Praise Him, Raise Him, and then even one called I Like Bananas, which is so cool. I like bananas, but anyway, it's so good. You gotta listen to them. Good stuff.
And a shout out to Jess Cast, who is on here right now. She's saying "Making Melodies in My Heart," always a kid's favorite. So yeah, that's a very popular one too. Let's see. So next up, next question is about. Let's talk about organization. So when it comes to organization, there's a lot of different ways that we can go about it here, but when you guys have had questions asked of you about how to be organized for KidMin, what are some of the responses that you've normally given on in that topic? Because it looks like that was really popular from the feedback we got.
This one's tough, James. We just mentioned this between us, but this is such a big topic. Are we talking bus? Are we talking Sunday school? Are we talking attendance? Are we talking name tags? Are we? It's a massive subject. I think the biggest change that we did that tied us in the most, and this is not form based, but it's getting your teachers together on a regular basis. For like a Sunday morning, and this is a no-brainer. Everybody probably knows to do this, but get them together every Sunday morning before you kick off. Address next week's lesson, this week's lesson, maybe introduce a new thought or inspiration that you came up with, and just bring yourself all together. And I'm telling you, that creates a unity right there. And it's not necessarily an organizational tip as much as it is you're making yourself a team instead of just individuals.
Yeah. So let's take it from that angle first, right? Let's think about from a Sunday school perspective, kind of what are some best practices, tips we can give people when it comes to how to make Sunday school operations run smoother, whether it's like you're saying, just team meeting type of stuff, maybe any forms, recommendations, and then we'll see if anybody chimes in with other specifics they want.
How about you start on that one, Brother James, that you guys are really good on organization.
Why, thank you. Okay, I take that as a compliment coming from you. I consider you guys very organized as well. But yeah, here's what I'll share. So, here's some thoughts. Like you were saying, one of the things that we like Sunday morning, we like having all teachers get together. Like our Sunday school doesn't actually start till more like 10:30. They come into service at 10 o'clock to be in worship with us, and before then the bus team has the kids in the gym hanging out, playing in the gym, and the teachers meet at 9 o'clock and they all pray together for about 10 minutes and then a quick 5-minute tagging meeting. So that's just like overall the entire team of Sunday school teachers, right? The whole idea of that is that there's kind of like unity in prayer, and also that everybody knows and can see with each other is like, hey, we all take this really seriously. We're all coming together. And there's just like one other reason that I think that's really important, which is there's just times when you're having a rough week, and frankly, if you're not together with other people, like you need somebody to help you kind of just break through, like it's just like you're just having a rough time. And I know for me, there's been times where I've walked in there and I'm with the teachers and somebody lays a hand on me and is praying with me. I'm like, man, like, praise God, like we all need that strength and encouragement, and that's just an assurance that there's always a mechanism in place for that. So I say, like, that's kind of like the big thing of all the groups, all the classes together. But I think, like you were saying on, like, kind of the brief or the debrief, typically I think it's really useful for there to be a debrief, and a lot of our classes do the debrief where they just tag in after class once all the bus kids are on the bus and the church kids have either been picked up or dropped off into the sanctuary. They just sit down for just a couple quick minutes and tag in. What did we think of the flow, the lesson, all this other stuff? What do we need to adjust? What everybody noticed, right? I think, like, those quick little check-ins help out a lot. But at a minimum, it's what we try to do here at First Church is we'll have a monthly lead teacher meetings. So if you have a lead teacher structure where you have lead teachers, and then under the lead teachers there's a team with them, then at least the leaders of each class are together and kind of trying to solve problems and make sure that there's a forum for that type of stuff to be taken care of. So I say, like, from a structural perspective, every Sunday everybody is together meeting and praying. After class, the teaching teams are together having a quick debrief tag-in. And then every month, the leaders are coming together and making small adjustments to just make sure that everything's humming and flowing and that you're thinking a little bit ahead. Is there anything else? How can we kind of push the ball forward? Where are we stuck? Does anybody need some ideas, inspiration? And the idea is, as a team, to kind of help each other, right? And as the leader, I'd say, like, a format I've used before is starting with kind of like, a refocus on the vision, just restating. It's like, hey guys, like, this is what we're about, right? So vision, accountability, encouragement, right? So, in that format of the meeting, like, it's like, okay, like, this is what we say we're about. This is what we try to do. We're Sunday school, and we work to equip kids in a fun and engaging way. How did we do? Accountability-wise, are we keeping our kids? How are our lessons? How do we feel about this? Let's all go through it. And then finishing up, encouragement. Like, what was it that went really well this month for you guys? Can somebody share some testimonies? What happened, right? So, that's just kind of thrown out there structure-wise, if that helps anybody. Ideas on how to keep the meeting useful, but also hopefully encouraging, so people don't feel like they're just like, so yeah. So those are some quick thoughts there.
Here's one thing on that, Brother James. I think it's really key not to just try to reinvent the wheel, in the sense that if you're let's just say a relatively newer program, or you're getting together, you're maybe starting from scratch, go to an established church that has it all figured out and just borrow ideas. Just sit with them. Go with them for a weekend and just see everything they do and take what you can, instead of just trying to do it all yourself from scratch. The most successful programs are the most likely to want to help somebody else. So, like, if you went to James Wang's church and said, hey, can I shadow you for this weekend? I have no doubt that he would say, here you go, tag along. This is everything I do. And you don't have to create anything from scratch. You just learn, pull. And not everything translates straight across, but at least you have a great starting point.
Yeah. Yeah. And I totally agree with that, right? I think you and I love borrowing from each other on this, because they're like, what's the shame in that, right? Like, that's a wonderful thing, because just because it's been done at First Church or it's been done at ILC or any of these other places, it's still brand new to everyone else's kids, right? And that's what matters, right? Like, it's like we're robbing the kids if we're not getting new, fresh ideas from other people, and nobody loses, right? So, no, absolutely, like you were saying, I think we've hosted people here before, and it's been a lot of fun. I think that's really important, right? We should network, and we should be pinging each other through, social media and other, like, forums like this type of stuff to share and just learn faster for all our benefits. Absolutely. So, Tyler, chime in, man. Chime in. The dapper.
Oh,
And
yeah. Now, the way this conversation is structured, I'm not sure if we're talking to the individual Sunday school teacher or to a director of a department. But I would say to any directors out there, and me personally, and I've never been a Sunday school superintendent or a children's pastor. I've done a lot of children's evangelism, and I've headed up a lot of kids' church, and I've been heavily involved in our Sunday school department in our church up in Lake Isabella. But I've been recently voted in as a pastor of a small church in a place called Oildale, California, they have a Sunday school program, but the potential is so great there. I'd really like to try to put something up. So I'm kind of in that newbie stage myself as far as direction and organization for the specific direction or what have you. But what I would say from a pastor standpoint is, if you're going to be in leadership over your Sunday school organization, or you're going to be a children's pastor, we're all going to have our seasons where we're kind of dropping the ball. We're not performing 100%. But I would really try to shout out to all of you leaders to be consistent. Like I said, we're going to have our moment. You guys hear that?
Mm-hmm.
You guys I'm getting a lot of feedback over here.
You sounded like you were in a fish tank for a moment, but you sound much better.
Oh, okay. I don't know what that was. But as a pastor, I would expect my children's leader over our Sunday school department to remain consistent and not go through fads or flares of organization or flares of enthusiasm. What I like to say is I think there's a difference between excitement and enthusiasm. Excitement is completely emotional. It's almost like a physiological reaction. But enthusiasm says, okay, even when the teachers don't show up to the meetings, even when people are late, even when people aren't on the right track, as a leader, I'm not going to let that discourage me from the overall vision and what we want to accomplish in our Sunday school department. I'm going to remain consistent and be the example that my teachers need to see in order to model after a successful children's ministry. So I would just say stay consistent. Find something that works in your environment. You're not going to be exactly like ILC or First Church, but take ideas and collaborate with other people who's been there, done that, and adapt it to your environment, and then be consistent with it. If we were talking to the independent individual Sunday school teacher or children's minister that might not be in charge of the whole operation, but they play a very integral part of a Sunday school department, is my wife says something all the time that really reflects her organizational skills when it comes to Sunday school in the classroom, and it's this: is Sunday school is more than a Sunday thing. Sunday school is an all-week thing, and so if you're waiting until the Saturday night before or an hour before class starts to organize your thoughts, organize your class lesson, really pray and get a burden for what you got to teach, and get your mind around what God wants you to talk to your kids about that Sunday morning, then you're really cheating yourself on the potential. I mean, we have these kids for an hour. That's it. We got to make it count. And so be studying, be praying, be mindful of the ways that you can improve your classroom way before Sunday even gets there. And I guarantee you that'll help you with the organization as far as implementation in the classroom, because your head's on your shoulders. And you're not so focused on the material and getting the material together as you are teaching these kids. Because when you go into a classroom, the kids are going to tell whether or not you're spending more time focused on the material teaching compared to the time you're focused on them as students. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think we need to be so on the ball as far as organization that when Sunday comes around, we're not getting anything together. I mean, we might be tying up loose ends here and there, but when the kids walk into the classroom, you don't need to be setting anything up. It needs to be done, because the kids are going to see, oh man, this is a last minute thing, and that might even go into a disciplinarian thing, because if they don't see that you're 100% on board, why should they be? So I don't know if that was harsh or whatnot, but that's what I would say that anybody that really wants to
That's
know
good.
how to just be consistent and don't think that Sunday school is something to do on a Sunday morning. I mean, it's a calling, and there's an anointing attached to it that is eternally
Yeah.
affecting the lives of children, and we got to look at it that way.
Yeah, that's
That's
one
good.
thing that those pre-class meetings will really help with, is being on time. I figure worst case, if they're late for that, at least they're on time for their class. Yeah, I mean that's not ideal, but at least they're not late for the kids.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. All right.
I think
So
there's some
it looks like
buffering
we're,
problems.
yeah, yeah. Hmm. Okay, so, okay. We're getting some very interesting and amusing comments. Amusing from my end, not amusing from your end. I hope that fixes soon. For any of you that are with us, either way, there will be a replay for this, but a very big part of this is being able to get your interactions and your comments and your questions here. So let's see. Another topic we have here is...
Question for you, Brother James, if I can.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
You mentioned the binders on your bus. We do binders as well, but based on how you mentioned them, we definitely are doing them differently. And I like how you say that every bus worker has a binder. Can you explain what exactly is in that? As in, does it have a list of kids from their street already?
Yes.
Are they writing in that binder new kids that they find? And are those new kids that they write in that binder now getting into your database? If so, how is that done?
Okay, great questions. Okay, so pretty much yes to everything you said there. So what's in the binder? So every single bus team member has a binder, and typically the cover says this property of Blue Bomber, this binder loved, guarded, and protected by name of person, right? And then inside there is a list of all the kids on their street, name, address, phone number, and then there's a little bit of variation amongst the routes. Some of them actually have blank sheets where they're writing additional new people, and they'll have goals where they're like, here's like the 5 places that we knocked and stuff like that, just like always like keeping themselves going and being thorough. And others, whenever they find somebody new, they'll just write it kind of on the edge of some of their papers, and then when they get back to the church, we'll have just like a laptop or two open, or they can actually do something from their phone or something like that. We personally use a system called Church Community Builder. I'm not like a massive advocate of it at all. But it's a database. I've used a lot of different types of databases. What I would say is, if you can go electronic, just because at least you can report against it. You can do like something with it. And frankly, it's just intimidating, the amounts of papers that you get. Like, I look back at my old paper records, and they're like literally like these massive stacks of paper, right? When we used to like check everything off. So what else is in the binder? The other things in the binder besides the like kid rosters are consent forms, so that they're always ready. Anytime they find a new kid, they can just be like, hey, well, you look really interested. Let's talk to your parents about it. And so they can go and get the parent to fill out right there on the spot. The other thing that they have in there is baptismal forms. So if they're talking with a kid and there's a conversation and the kid wants to get baptized, and they talk to them and feel like, okay, like this kid really does want to get baptized, understands. Next step is for them to get baptized, they're going to have to get parental consent. So, on the spot, they can go ahead and talk to a parent about letting a child get baptized. So we have that in there, and then we have just like a couple other sheets that are just things like, here's safety protocol, like always go 2 by 2 and stuff like that. And then we've got like one more thing in there that's just a, like, expectations of a Blue Bomber crew member. Welcome to the Blue Bomber crew family, blah, 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 right? And so that's the main components there. And then, sometimes people will throw in a couple other things. Like we have that 4-week challenge that I've mentioned before. People typically put that in their binder as well, and they'll just like check off, okay, I read this week, or this day, and stuff like that. That's my son. Hi, Judah. Okay, so those are the things that. Yeah, sure.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Okay.
So the kids, when they get a binder, they're assigned to a street. You print them out and put it in their binder. I'm assuming a list of all the current kids plus disease, plus all of those different groups that are on those streets in their binder. So if they get a new kid, they write it in there. How does that get into your database? And then how does that get back into their binder now that it's in your database? Or from that point on, do they work off of their handwritten notes? Like, are you printing them out a new sheet every week and they're sticking it in their binder? How are you guys doing that?
Quarterly refreshes. If you see that, it depends how much things are fluxing, right? Like if it really gets that messy, of course, refresh more often. But like the way that I've done it with my team is, there's some kids, they'll come literally one time, and as much as you try to get them back, they just wanted to come for Hot Cheeto Sunday, and they just, no matter how much you beg, they're just not coming back. And then there's other kids that they've come 3 times out of 8, 3 times out of 12. It's like, no, like we should really focus on these kids. So what we end up doing is we just kind of do a reconcile every quarter. It's like, okay, all the kids that literally only came one time, and that time was like 2 months ago, take them off there, put them into ZZZ, and then let's do a refresh of the roster, and now you got a fresh roster. Right? So we kind of like do that rotation on a quarterly basis. That feels about right. If necessary, maybe you need to refresh more often than that, but on the most part, we go quarterly.
I guess what I would be terrified of is a bus worker losing their binder and losing a lot of info that I don't have yet. So if they write a new kid's address in there, how do I know about it? How do you know about it? So if they lose their binder, what happens?
Yes. Okay. Okay. I missed a very important step there. So every single week, whenever a new kid shows up, for that number, for that child to be counted part of the number for that street, they have to actually live in our system so that there can be a checkbox next to their name. So they aren't real until we have a consent form in hand, and when we have a consent form in hand, somebody punches that into the system, right? So that's kind of our stopgap for that. So does that kind of answer what you're thinking?
More or less. I think we do a rough semblance of the same thing. We have like a greeting table, so when the kids come off the bus, they come straight to the greeting table cool. If they don't already have a name tag. If they have a name tag, that means they're in the system and they're good. The name tags are handed out ahead of time. Then they go to the greeting table, they're handwritten a name tag, and their data is gathered at that point. We also have a consent form ahead of time, but so I'm just trying to see how you guys do it versus what we do, because I want to use the binders more heavily than we are, because we're not doing them well enough, and I like the idea. I like what you're doing.
Yeah, and I welcome any other ideas anybody else has too. But yeah, those are just some of the things that we've come across, and really it's not perfect across every route, because a lot of that is dependent on how diligent the captain is at putting the binder together, and I make that the captain's responsibility. And every so often I'll look around. If I see somebody without a binder, be like, hey, where's your binder at? And if they say, well, I never got one, then I'm going to talk to the captain real quick. Do you have the stuff you need, and other stuff like that, and just make sure that that's happening. That's I think that's a big thing. If somebody doesn't have a form to be able to sign a kid up, then how can we expect them to sign more kids up, right? So yeah, we try to make it easy. And worst case scenario, the captains tend to have that stuff with them too, so that if somebody forgot their binder, at least they've got it. But we don't want it to be like a multi-week thing.
Got it. Mm-hmm. I have a question for Brother Tyler as well. And if I'm stepping on you, Brother James, you stop me anytime if you have something else out of the chat.
No. Go ahead. Yeah, that's great.
You guys are like Brother Tyler's the Power Hour guru. Now, when you're doing like an evangelist thing, when you're on going to someone's church, are you interacting with their Sunday school ministry, as in they're doing the songs and you're just doing the final lesson? What is the best hybrid of using theirs and you together, or is it just you run the whole thing from start to finish? How does that work?
You know what? In all honesty, Brother Phillip, when I go to a church, if they're bringing in children's evangelists, typically the typical church is going to want to get their use out of them, and those Sunday school volunteers or those children's ministers, they're going to want to observe and learn new things and how to do different things. They're going to want to learn my songs and different things that I do in a children's church. So they could implement those things in their own hour or whatever. There's been few places that I've gone to where they actually just had me come up and preach, like they did an illustrated sermon, and their Sunday school did the songs and the puppets and all that. I will offer the pastor, hey, would you like your people to be involved, because I could plug them in somewhere in a skit or puppets, or I could have them help me lead the songs or whatever. I am totally open to working with their staff, but what I've noticed mostly is it's a little easier for an evangelist to flow with the service if he's in control of the content in that service. The songs kind of flow, the puppet skit kind of flows, all the object lessons, they flow with the message that I'm trying to portray for that night. So preference, I like to kind of be in charge of the entire service, but I offer the pastor, I love getting other people plugged in. But from my experience, I've seen that if a children's evangelist is going to be brought in, typically the children's ministers of that church, they kind of want to observe and kind of learn different techniques and stuff instead of being behind the scenes, behind a puppet stage, not being able to see what I'm doing out in the front. So that's kind of been my experience. But typically, wherever I go, I do like a little local Sunday school seminar. It's not anything big, but sometimes I do a teacher's training, an hour before the class of the kids' church or revival starts, or sometimes I get a chance to talk to the Sunday school teachers about what I expect and how they could apply this to their Sunday school moving forward, the experiences that they'll find in the kids' revival. I think kids' revival is such an awesome opportunity to really expose your kids to, just hop in revival church. What I like to see in kids' revivals is when, and we do this a lot in Lake Isabella, is we take all of the Sunday school kids and we bring them into the main sanctuary. And sometimes we have a theme, sometimes it's just colorful backdrop and what have you. But just bring them into the sanctuary so that these bus kids can get acquainted with, the sanctuary and not just their classroom, and have kids church there in the sanctuary. And man, there's an expectancy there when you build it up that when altar call comes around, those kids are begging to get to those altars and pray. And I don't even know how I got off on that tangent, but I think I was just giving a plug-in for if you guys have never done a kids revival in your church, I would highly recommend it, because not only are the kids totally pumped and stoked about going to the sanctuary for services geared toward them, but you're also exposing what you're doing with these kids, and you're kind of sharing the zeal and sharing the passion with the adults that might not be involved in children's ministry in your church, because they're still going to come those regular church services and they're going to see what the Sunday school department's doing. And it kind of builds a bond of passion there within the local assembly. So I would definitely recommend any church to host a children's revival. And even if you're not bringing in a kids evangelist, bring the kids into like the main sanctuary and put on a revival style kids church totally geared towards their kids.
Yeah, no, that's good. And he won't say this himself, but Brother Tyler Hodge is the man. He is one of the best children's evangelists out there. He's really, really good. Brother James, I'm not hearing you. Are you muted, brother?
Yeah. I had kind of mentioned that I was really excited, Brother Tyler, when you were up here for that camp in Monterey. I thought that was pretty awesome. I liked the object lesson you taught when you literally put a box over yourself, talking about how you didn't have to be stuck in that box and everything, and you're like breaking out of the box, and kids are going nuts and everything, and that was the night that those kids were just like literally praying through for like hours. It was really awesome. So yeah, I'm thankful for children's evangelists. Something I would say to that is also, even if you have a thriving children's ministry, it's just, like there's just something about an evangelist, right? Where an evangelist can do and say and interact with your kids in just as a new element, another element, and they can just add something else to it. So I just think that's so great. We've definitely had fun having children's evangelists here at First Church too. And I take no offense to the idea that somebody else can and should absolutely minister to these kids. I want it. My philosophy is kind of like this. It's like, your body can only take so much fructose. So literally, like, you can eat like tons of fruit and everything, and it's just like, not going to take anymore, right? Like, there's different amounts of things that you need. You need to have kind of a well-balanced diet of ministry. So it is definitely cool to have evangelists come in. So if you're looking for one, there happens to be one on this webinar that we highly recommend.
Yes.
Yeah. So Phillip, let me ask you this: you're always finding all these object lessons, and just throwing this out there. If you guys haven't seen his object lessons, you should check them out on Apostolic Sunday School. But where do you find these things? Where do you find these inspirations, and what tips can you give people?
Well, Brother Tyler said that he was a Kidmin junkie, and that's exactly how I feel. I love it. And object lessons are they're the best way ever to get a kid interested in the classroom. So if you have a kid that's so cool, he doesn't want to be here, and all of a sudden he sees he is involved in the class, whether he wants to be or not, he is instantly present. So I love going on different science websites. Are neat to me because it's fascinating. It's not sleight of hand. It's real things that happen. And so I'll go to Steve Spangler. The guy's got just some really, really good stuff, but he has no moral for it. So you gotta. Here's the catch. If you're going for an object lesson on fill in the blank, faith, you're not going to go to Steve Spangler and find a faith object lesson. You're not. It's just not the way it works.
Yeah.
So at least what I've done is I go through every experiment the man has ever done, everyone that Science Bob's ever done, everyone that everybody's ever done, and I try to make a lesson for every single done. That way, when it pops up, when I have a lesson on faith, I can literally go through my database and pull up faith, and I have lessons on faith because I've done them and I have them logged. And I'm trying to make this available to everybody, where you can go to Apostolic Sunday School and type in faith and find the object lesson instead of the other way around. Find the object lesson and then match it to a topic. So I just love seeing neat things. Anything that catches my attention is likely to catch a kid's attention, whether that's an interesting science experiment. It might be this was the coolest one. I saw Brother Baglin a long time ago do a fruit of the spirit object lesson where he had all these fruit, but he was eating them, and that doesn't sound very cool until you saw him eat a banana with the skin on. I've never seen anything like it. It horrified me. but I was captivated. Like, this man is my hero right now. It was so awesome. And there's a reason he did it. It's for the lesson. It's built into the lesson, and I'm going to be adding that pretty quick to the site. But if it gets my attention, it's going to get a kid's attention probably, because I think I have the brain of a 3-year-old. So it's really fun. But I'll go to every kid site out there, or whether it's Christian based or not, and I'll try to turn it into a Christian based object lesson and just have enough of them in a pool that I can pull out of when a topic comes up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know what? I have another website or a resource that I like to use for object lessons. I love science experiences; they're fantastic. You could take just about anything, and with the right message behind it, you can make it an object lesson. I've found that best object lessons are things that kids see, not the best, but some of the greatest object lessons I've seen are when you use objects that kids come in contact on a day-to-day basis. There's been different things. I think the King's Clown Lloyd Squires, he's used hair before in an object lesson, and he teaches his whole entire lesson based off from that chair, and he's talking about different things and what have you. And that's something, whenever a kid sees a chair, you never know the connections they're going to make in their brain to that lesson. But another resource that I really like to use for object lessons is a guy named Julian's Magician School on YouTube. That guy has hundreds of magic tricks and illusions that I've used several of them for different object lessons and what have you. And magic or illusions, it doesn't have to be expensive. You just need to be creative and you need to practice it. Don't you ever try to do a magic trick or an illusion the first time in front of and try to keep the object lesson out of it. Man, that is the worst. Oh man, I've messed up so many times and the kids have caught me because I'm not quick enough with something. But it can be done. I would recommend going on YouTube and looking up Julian's Magician School. He's got a lot of stuff on there that you could utilize for object lessons as well.
Yeah, I definitely just went and bookmarked and subscribed to that. So, here's another thing I would say about object lessons, kind of like what you were saying, Brother Phillip, which is that's not everybody's gift. Some people, it's like really hard, and then other people, they're just sitting there and they're like having lunch and they're like, oh, got this perfect object lesson for this salt shaker, and like just like object lessons everywhere. I see them, and I think the great thing is if you start to notice those people in your team and department, like it's like, maybe you were inspiring me, Brother Phillip, where I just imagine, okay, I know a couple on my team. They're just like always, one of these guys, his name's Gary Tucker, and I always call him Gary Spangler because he's constantly doing like Steve Spangler science lessons and stuff like that, and like, oh, Brother Gary's got dry ice again. Oh, Brother Gary's making some giant flame again. Oh, Brother Gary's crushing a can without his hands again, and stuff like that. And there's another guy I'm thinking of, like, Richard's really good with that stuff too, but it's like doing like an object lesson pizza night or something, right? Like get all of your most creative people together and just like, let's go crazy and do like an object lesson jam session and just like write down as many object lessons as possible, because sometimes it's, like those type of people tend to inspire each other and they're like, oh yeah, well that was cool, but what if we said this, and like they just like go nuts and everything and stuff like that. And then there's other people where like, you could put all these exciting objects in front of them and they're just like, and they just stare at each other, right? Like it's just not going to happen. There's like none of that stuff popping and everything, but use the people who have those gifts and they can kind of spread it out amongst all of Sunday school and stuff like that, even there. And better yet, when you've done that, get it online, share it with us, right? Share it with all of us, like what Philip's doing.
I was going to mention
kind of cool these ideas.
Mm-hmm. If you could send me something really cool that you've done, if you even have it recorded, if you have a video of it, post it on YouTube, send me a link. I'll post it.
Yeah.
I want your ideas. I put my ideas out there, but
I'm with you.
It's one man's perspective. I want there to be, eventually this community is going to explode. I want to have have 50 people contributing to the object lessons, another 10 contributing to the songs. I mean, it's the way it should be. When you come up with something amazing, I want to use it next Sunday.
Exactly. So with
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was
go
just
ahead.
a piggyback on Sunday school and give a plug-in and try to paint the picture of the powerful potential. Wow, that was a lot of P's. Paint the picture of the powerful potential of Apostolic Sunday School. Is that all that's on there right now is some tips for teachers and what have you, and some object lessons. And is that it? I mean, we don't even have skits or puppet scripts or, like you said, songs. But that kind of thing, I mean, this thing can blow up so huge, and I don't even know how scalable the website is as far as the back end is concerned. But, I mean, I'm just putting a plug in for Brother Phillip. He has done an incredible job, and so has Brother James with this Next Level Kids Men and getting this community together. If we can collaborate together, I think that we could. I mean, iron sharpeneth iron, and we're going to take the fight to the street. We are going to win our kids worldwide. This is going to be huge. So I'm totally in.
Amen. All right, with that, that's a great note to end on here. So for those of you that made it all the way through, thank you for joining us. We appreciate having you with us tonight. And for those of you that didn't, many of you were asking about the replay, and it will absolutely be coming together. So you'll be getting an email about the replay with all that information there. And we look forward to seeing you in the next webinar. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a good night. Take care.
If you like this video, make sure to click subscribe so that you can stay in the loop for more KidMin tips, tricks, and ideas. See you in the next video.
Subscribe.
Subscribe.